Dahating panowon ing panowon ing ibu bumi. For the next songs, I would like to sing Indonesian local song. It's from East Indonesia. Maybe for Indonesian we can sing together. Rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang. Jalan-jalan ke Surabaya, jangan lupa beli kebaya. Indonesia hijau hutannya jadi paru-paru dunia. Rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang. Rumah kayu dari tomohon, jendelanya kayu mahoni. Jangan lupa menanam pohon karena suhu bumi. Rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang. Pekalongan kotanya baik, orangnya ramah, suka menari. Hindarilah kantong plastik, bawa tas belanja sendiri. Kalau ada hotel di Madrid, boleh saya ditraktir kopi. Kalau ada waktunya lagi, boleh saya menyanyi lagi. Semuanya rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, rasa sayang, rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, lihat dari jauh. Rasa sayang, sayang, ayo mama, jangan marah-marah beta. Dia cuma-cuma cium beta. Ayo mama, jangan mama marah beta. Orang muda punya biasa. Ayam hitam, telurnya putih, mencari makan di pinggir kali. Sinyo hitam, giginya putih, kalau tertawa manis sekali. Everyone, ayo mama, jangan mama marah beta. Dia cuma-cuma cium beta. Ayo mama, jangan mama marah beta. Lah orang muda punya biasa. One more. Ayo mama, jangan mama marah beta. Dia cuma-cuma cium beta. Ayo mama, jangan mama marah beta. Lah orang muda punya biasa. One more time. Lah orang muda punya biasa. Gede.
Ya, udah kosong. Terusin lagi aja. Intan, disuruh terusin lagi. Bisa. Kalau nggak bisa ya udah nggak apa-apa.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you very much for the beautiful performance, Kak Opi and Mas Gede. Please round of applause once again to the performer of Indonesia Pavilion. And now we're still waiting for Professor Jeffrey Sachs to come on stage of Indonesia Pavilion. But I would like to inform you that for the materials of presentations and also the details of our agenda as well as the live streaming of our sessions, you can check it on our website indonesiaunf.com. So for the recent news, that Mr. Jefferson is still on the way to here. So everyone, please be patient.
Hutan adat itu tadi dia makan budaya dia, seni dia, bekas buah, bekas air, pokok ya, bekas tanah, bekas kayu, semua bisa makan.
Masalah yang dihadapi Sungai Utik pada saat ini yaitu belum adanya pengakuan dari pemerintah untuk legalitas wilayah adat Sungai Utik.
Lawan kami untuk ketan ke menua, kami nak orang nebang kayu di Galugiang. Dan orang kulu kiri di Galugiang semua, kami dituk nak. Nebang kayu ni kita untuk derimpu pembangunan derimpu nadai dijual.
Saya bawa anak-anak pergi ke hutan dan kemudian mengenalkan hutan ini tidak boleh kita rusak, kita harus jaga.
Menua itu menjadi milik orang semua itu. Orang semua dalam dunia itu nemu. Abak ya buku di undang-undang surat. Kami tanah adat, hutan adat itu tadi dia makan budaya dia, seni dia, bekas buah, bekas air, pokok ya, bekas tanah, bekas kayu, semua bisa makan.
Masalah yang dihadapi Sungai Utik pada saat ini yaitu belum adanya pengakuan dari pemerintah untuk legalitas wilayah adat Sungai Utik.
Lawan kami untuk ketan ke menua, kami nak orang nebang kayu di Galugiang. Dan orang kulu kiri, igal ugiang semua. Kami dituk nah. Nebang kayu ni kita. Untuk derimpu, pembangunan derimpu. Nadai dijual.
Saya bawa anak-anak pergi ke hutan dan kemudian mengenalkan hutan ini tidak boleh kita rusak, kita harus jaga.
Menua tu dah jadi milik orang semua itu. Ngambil orang semua dalam dunia tu nemu. Abak ya buku di undang-undang surat. Mengenai kami tanah adat, hutan adat tu tadi dia magang budaya dia, seni dia, beka buah, beka air, pokok ya, beka tanah, beka kayu, semua bisik magang.
Masalah yang dihadapi Sungai Utik pada saat ini yaitu belum adanya pengakuan dari pemerintah untuk legalitas wilayah adat Sungai Utik.
Lawan kami tu ketan ke menua, kami nak orang nebang kayu di galugiang. Dan orang kulu kiri di galugiang semua. Kami dituk nah. Nebang kayu ni kita. Untuk derimpu, pembangunan derimpu. Nadai dijual.
Saya bawa anak-anak pergi ke hutan dan kemudian mengenalkan hutan ini tidak boleh kita rusak, kita harus jaga.
Menua tu dah jadi milik orang semua itu. Ngambil orang semua dalam dunia tu nemu. Abak ya buku di undang-undang surat. Mengenai kami tanah adat, hutan adat tu tadi dia magang budaya dia, seni dia, beka buah.
Kalau Tangkahan tidak ada ekoturisme, mungkin hari ini hutan di sana sudah habis karena kami juga kehidupan. Dan kami akan melakukan apapun agar kami bisa hidup, karena kami juga makhluk hidup yang punya hak untuk hidup di muka bumi ini.
Sebelum ekowisata, saya adalah illegal logger. Pengambilan kayu dari hutan itu tidak tabu. Semua masyarakat mengambil itu.
Saya dulu ditangkap sama aparat, dihukum 2 tahun begitu. Dan di penjara saya berpikir, apa sih harus kuperbuat sekembalinya aku dari penjara. Karena kakek saya juga, bapak saya pemain illegal logging dan saya juga. Tapi saya berpikir kalau saya nggak berubah, mungkin anak saya juga mungkin bisa seperti nasibnya. Saya seperti itu.
Alasan saya dari pelaku illegal lodging menjadi pelaku pariwisata itu adalah karena melihat dampak negatif dari pelaku illegal lodging itu. Kita merubah mindset tersebut menjadi pelaku pariwisata dan kita mendapat keuntungan dengan menjaga hutan. Paket wisata gajah yang ditawarkan kepada wisatawan itu seperti memandikan gajah, berjalan bersama dengan gajah. Nah, jadi para turis dapat melihat dan mempelajari bagaimana sifat gajah di dalam hutan.
All the things that we've done in Northern Sumatra have been kind of eco-tourism, and it's really nice to see that it's not just foreigners coming in, giving money, going away. Everything's being fed back into the communities so they can empower themselves, have alternatives to being in the palm oil industry or logging or all of those things which are destroying this habitat, because it's beautiful.
Semua tamu tangga melalui CTO, datang tamu ketahuan kamu mau tempat di mana begitu, nggak ada harus di sini, nggak boleh seperti itu. Pemerataan itu bukan semua sama ya kan, tapi semua mendapat sekarang ini. Bagi masyarakat yang nampak jelas sekali keuntungannya, pendidikan bahasa Inggris didanai daripada ya kita sendiri, lembaga kita.
Announcing the arrival of our guest of honor, His Excellency Jeffrey Sachs. Before we proceed with the final session, I would like to call upon Bapak Yatna Supriyatna to moderate the session.
Gimana nih ngomong juga?
Please welcome Professor Jeffrey Sachs.
Thank you everyone for coming to this Indonesian Pavilion. We are very big honor to have Professor Jeffrey Sachs. He's a very famous because of his role in the sustainable development. He is a professor at the Columbia University in New York, but also he's the author of the Sustainable Development books and director of the UN Sustainable Development Solution Networks. So before we are going to give him a big speech, I would like to have Vice Minister of Minister of Environment and Forestry, Dr. Aludohong. The time is here, Pak.
Honorable Professor Jeffrey Sachs, my fellow delegates, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, on behalf of the government of Republic Indonesia, I would like to express my sincere thanks and gratitude for you to come to these pavilions of Indonesia. I got information from Dr. Agus Justianto, chairman of these pavilions, that you've been, this visit is constituted your fourth visit to pavilions Indonesia since COP 21st in Paris, 22nd in Marrakesh, and 24th in Katowice. I need to also inform you that during this occasion, Indonesia Pavilion want to save the best for the last before we close this pavilion in the next hours. After having 42 discussion sessions for almost 2 weeks, at this pavilion, we found the facts that we don't live in this world like in a blank sheet of paper. The world has become more complex than before. Our world needs more concrete solutions, especially how to improve the livelihood, developing the global economics, and sustaining the natural resources. To be honest, I want to say you are my favorite professor because I think two of your books, I really love it. The End of Poverty, then our common speech. And I hope through this great lecture opportunity, you will energize us, with your lecture in order to get innovative solution for this for the future generation. Therefore, I would like to request Honorable Professor Jeffrey Sachs to deliver his inspiring note to all of us here in Indonesia Pavilion 25th COP Madrid. So thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you. Thank you, Vice Minister. So I forgot to mention that he is also the senior advisor for Secretary General of UN, starting from Ban Ki-moon and up to now. So he's been from Kofi Annan. Oh yes, oh, no, from Kofi Annan. So it's been 20 years something. So the time is yours. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister and Jatna, for all of our partnership together. And ladies and gentlemen, it is always a joy, and this is the fourth celebration of being at the Indonesian Pavilion. You have a wonderful country, one of the most beautiful places on the planet, and a country of incredible human, cultural, and biodiversity. And therefore, it's especially important that we work together to save the planet and to save Indonesia, which is under a lot of threat from the global trends. I think for all of us, these COP meetings are a mix of alarm and frustration because we know that we're not making the kind of progress that is needed given the facts that we tell each other and that we learn from the scientists like the professor here who's one of Indonesia's great scientists. We're not yet succeeding and we're trying very hard, but we're facing some very, very powerful obstacles and very powerful opponents indeed. The situation for Indonesia is definitely one of extreme danger, I would say, in the future. And that is because the climate forces that are at play will wreak havoc for an archipelago country of 17,000 islands unless we have a decisive change of trajectory for the world. All of you know that the warming to date has already taken us to 1.2 degrees C above the pre-industrial level. We haven't been this warm on Earth for the last 115,000 years. The last time Earth was this warm was before all of civilization. It was the previous interglacial period, the Eemian period. And the news for Indonesia from the Earth's history is a kind of grim message. When Earth was this warm before, or maybe fractions of 1 degree C warmer than now, the sea level was 8 meters higher than it is today. Consider the consequences for Indonesia and for other low-lying places in the world. And I have a special affinity for that because, like you, I live on an island economy called Manhattan. Manhattan, with an 8-meter sea level rise, is also devastated. My flat is on the 3rd floor. We could potentially take a boat into the window, but I don't think that there will be much left, actually, to take a boat if we continue on the trajectory that we're on right now. So what is the real news of this COP, and what is our real purpose? The real news is that we have clarified for ourselves that we're at the last moment of safety. And we have clarified that at the very minimum, our trajectory must be to decarbonize the world energy system by mid-century latest. But maybe when we come back next year or the year after that, we'll realize that even that goal is not sufficient, because we're seeing feedbacks in the natural system. For example, the stories of the last couple of days in the news about the devastating changes taking place in the Arctic and the boreal climates shifting from net carbon storage to net carbon source, which could be a huge amplifier of the warming that's underway right now. So maybe we're going to find that even 2050 is a kind of dream luxury that we don't have time to achieve, that maybe we're going to have to aim for something even more dramatic and even more urgent and even more costly and even more unlikely to succeed. But we do know that zero now really means zero. We must go to zero emissions by mid-century. And this is the message for every government and for every signatory of the Paris Climate Agreement. Next year is the rebasing of the nationally determined contributions. Next year's plans cannot be modest plans to 2025 or to 2030 or to 2035. They can't be stated that we're going to reduce the CO2 intensity of production, or we're going to arrive at a peak, or any of the nice, easy formulations of the first round of NDCs. Next year's plans need to go to mid-century, and they need to go to zero. That's the homework for every country. And that is a big challenge for all of us as we leave this COP, knowing that we have more homework to do than ever before. Almost no government is prepared for this reality right now. Almost no government has done the homework of what it really means to get to zero emissions by 2050. Almost no government has such a plan in place. And some, a few, my own being the notable one, the United States has gone rogue. It is the most dangerous country in the world now. It has the most irresponsible leadership in the world. It has pulled out of this agreement altogether, which is a degree of immorality and stupidity that is hard to imagine, but we have the worst president we've ever had in our history, and we're trying to impeach him this week. And if that doesn't work, we're going to defeat him next November, because the world... Because nobody has the right to wreck the earth. Nobody. Not the President of the United States, not the U.S. as the biggest military superpower on the planet. Nobody has the right to leave this agreement. Everyone's on this planet. Everyone's CO2 goes into the atmosphere. Everyone is co-responsible. And if you happen to be the United States, you have the biggest historical responsibility of any single country in the world. And we have the highest emissions per capita of any large economy in the world. So Trump has no right, ethically, legally, practically, to do what he's doing. So that's why we need a new president. We're going to work on that. But in the meantime, you're going to have to work on this homework assignment of designing a real program to get to zero by 2050. Now, one good piece of news this week is Europe's unveiling yesterday of the European Green Deal. Read the document. It's really important. It's important for the Indonesian government. It's important for every government in the world. It's actually an excellent job what the European Commission put out yesterday. It is a bold, ambitious, comprehensive, complex document that combines decarbonization to 2050, circular economy, sustainable food supply, social inclusion and social deliberation, and global diplomacy. It's very sophisticated. And by the way, when you read it, it's a little bit exhausting. It's not an easy document that says, well, we're going to raise the carbon price and that's our strategy. It understands that the real strategy that we need now is not a single instrument, but a very complex challenge of governing that includes the market system, includes accountability of the private sector, it includes government regulation, it includes market-based instruments, whether it's permits that are tradable or carbon pricing or carbon taxation. It includes financial regulation. It includes public procurement. It includes public investment. It includes public education. It includes R&D missions. It's complicated. But this issue is complicated. And it also understands quite rightly that there isn't a single goal. We are environmentally wrecking the planet in three big ways, not just one. One is climate change, and that is essentially the greenhouse gas emissions, which is largely carbon, but also methane and nitrous oxide. It is the destruction of ecosystems and habitats, and Indonesia is vulnerable on both counts of the terrestrial ecosystems and the marine ecosystems. Both of them are under assault. And in the marine areas, the whole Indonesian archipelago is vulnerable to illegal fishing that is massive by outside fleets, outside of the control of the Indonesian Coast Guard. And so the fisheries are being absolutely devastated. The peat burning is adding billions of tons of CO2 to the atmosphere and killer pollution throughout the region. The deforestation in favor of palm oil and other crops is a huge problem, because the truth is the market signal makes palm oil very profitable for smallholders and for big businesses, but you could clear-cut Sumatra, Java, Sulawesi, Kalimantan, plant palm oil and still make money but destroy the country. And so there has to be a way to say, stop. These are our boundaries. Here you can plant, but here we preserve nature. And we're on the verge of losing the orangutan and many other precious species. And for me, by the way, what we do to the great ape populations is devastating and tragic, that we're not clever enough to keep our cousins alive, but to destroy the habitat out of a little bit more palm oil. And so this is the second area of environmental devastation. And the third area, of course, is the massive pollutants everywhere. Plastics are everywhere. I now understand this past week that they're in our snowfall. So when the snow falls, we have microplastics. Of course, when we eat fish from around the world, we are eating microplastics. It's pervasive in the ecosystems. We had a really painful talk by the mayor of Pittsburgh a couple of days ago in one of our sessions, who explained that Pittsburgh in the United States has spent 40 years trying to overcome the polluting legacy of steel industry, and it succeeded by bringing in advanced technologies. Carnegie Mellon University, one of the great world leaders of artificial intelligence and robotics and so forth, so it made the transformation. But then, because the fossil fuel industry is fracking up and down Pennsylvania, and they don't have what to do with all of this gas that they're producing, plastics manufacturing and petrochemicals are going up all around Pittsburgh, and he said it's going to destroy everything we worked 40 years to do. And it's the greed of the company and the greed of other American big oil companies, which are the big lobbyists. They bought the Republican Party. By the way, our politicians are very cheap if you want to buy some politicians. They sell their souls for almost nothing. You can probably buy their whole families cheap if you want. But if you want to know why America is so stupid, actually we're no more stupid on average than anyone else, but we are more corrupt than most places in the world because we have more money changing hands, and our political system became just a money game. And that's why you see Republicans saying so many stupid things, because they're paid to. And the oil industry just pays them, funds their campaigns, and that's why the pollution continues to be so devastating everywhere. So we have three huge environmental crises that need to be attended to. And to return to Europe's Green Deal, it attends to all three of them. And then it also adds the public deliberation as a core feature of Europe's strategy. And this is very, very important, because we see that while we need technocrats for sure, we need experts for sure, politics that is based on a top-down approach is going to be explosive. And how many places in the world have people out on the streets because the government has either been unfair or it hasn't taken the time to even explain what these transformations are about. And so the European model is one of mass education on these issues, and I would recommend for every government, put these issues into the school system now, not 10 years from now. Have a module at every year. What is climate change? What is sustainable development? What is biodiversity? What a great way in Indonesia for young people to learn about their own country and how much they could learn and understand and then help find solutions. So that's also part of Europe's agenda. And the final part that is mentioned in the European Green Deal, which I really subscribe to, is diplomacy. Because Europe says, well, we're important, we're a $20 trillion economy, we have a consequential role in all three of these environmental crises. But if we do everything right and the rest of the world doesn't, nothing is going to be solved. So all of this has to be based on diplomacy. What's also crucial to understand, and this plan also recognizes that clearly, but it doesn't yet implement it, is that no country can solve any one of these three crises on its own, because they are all at a minimum at a regional scale. If you want a zero carbon energy system in Indonesia, you better connect with Malaysia, with Singapore, with the rest of ASEAN region. It should be coordinated with Australia, which is going to be part of a hydrogen supply chain for the region. It should be connected through interconnected grids so that when it's cloudy someplace, it's sunny somewhere else, and the electrons can move, or when it's the sun is shining in one place and the wind is quiet in another, the intermittency is handled by a geographically dispersed grid. So the solution also requires not only diplomacy, but also infrastructure that is built at an international scale. We can succeed, ladies and gentlemen, in solving all of these problems, because when you take the challenges, break them down into their components, ask how could you actually do this, it turns out there are very practical, reasonable, and utterly affordable approaches for success. Just on decarbonization, I think it's worth pointing out that all studies of decarbonization show now the same basic point. Get your power system 100% green. Wind, solar, biomass, which Indonesia can use definitely, hydroelectric, ocean power, and so forth. Green electricity. Electrify all transport. So we're going to be driving electric vehicles. We should let the automotive industry worldwide know, don't plan to sell any more internal combustion vehicles after 2030. Just zero emitting vehicles after 2030. I think they're getting the message, but we have to be sharper and clearer about that. And trucks are going to ride also electrified, probably on overhead catenary lines along the highways, which will feed the electricity for the larger freight. And of course, rail can be electrified and so forth. So clean electricity, electrification of transport, electrification of buildings. Indonesia doesn't have to worry too much about heating like we do in the United States, but it does worry about cooling, but that will be run on clean electrons, to be sure, and on energy efficient buildings that don't require so much aircon to keep the cool. And then a few industries need special solutions, especially steel, cement, and petrochemicals. So the matrix of policies is not so mysterious. The adjustments need to be planned. They will take one generation to bring about. 25 to 30 years is the generational change for the infrastructure. That means that all the plans need to be implemented now. For Indonesia and for other fossil fuel-based countries, it adds a measure of direct challenge. Indonesia is going to have to phase out of coal, not only in domestic use, but in exports as well. The fossil fuel-based exports around the world have to end. It doesn't work like Prime Minister Trudeau has tried to have it in Canada, for example, that will be clean at home but will export our crud to the rest of the world. No one wants your crud. No one should be using it. You are not allowed a free pass of domestically clean policies but exports of fossil fuel. Both. That's pure carbon leakage. If you stop at home but you export it abroad. And that means that Indonesia has the challenge of transitioning from coal as an export to many other things that Indonesia can do. And Indonesia is a very talented country and has tremendous capacities in industry and in services and in sustainable agriculture and in sustainable mining. It doesn't have to rely on fossil fuels to do this. I would urge that all of us, when we do go home, we plan in every way that we can to press our own governments and our regions to get to zero and be ready for that in Glasgow next year. For young people that are striking, keep doing it, of course, but also when you strike, hold up the plan for decarbonization to 2050. So you can say, we're kids, but we have a plan. What's the matter with the adults? We can do this, ladies and gentlemen. Time is very short. Thanks for being together on this. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey Sachs. There will be a token of appreciation that will be given by His Excellency Dr. Alue Dohong as the Vice Minister of Environment and Forestry. Thank you very much, Mr. Jeffrey Sachs. And that's all, and then thank you very much. And we will have a photo session with all the guests. And for that, we would like to ask you to stand in the center. Yes. So everyone would like to ask you to stay on your seat. Or maybe for everyone, you can stand up. Please give a round of applause once again to Mr. Jeffrey Sachs. It was a great pleasure to having you in here. And for those of you, please stay on your seat because we are about